At it again, Birdies Not BS. It's your man, Dougie Fresh, man. I probably got the coolest co-homie next to me right now. Carolina Romero, what's up, girl? How you doing today?
Living the dream like always. Thank you so much for having me.
Oh, it's a pleasure. It's a pleasure. Look, Carolina, we are answering the most important questions in golf. I live in Scottsdale. You're in Delray Beach, West Coast Florida, East Coast Florida, excuse me. And it's hot. There's no other way to describe. Like it's hot.
Always.
So we had some questions about playing in the heat. So I want to hear it from you. I know you are an expert in all things fitness, all things mobility, but I want to know from you, how can we take all this and play in the heat?
Well, first of all, we have to talk about the fact that your type of heat and my type of heat is completely different.
Okay.
So, I got to experience that when I was in Tahoe. Like that dry heat versus the humid heat, it just hits you completely different, especially when you're not used to it. So, for a Floridian like me playing golf in Florida, just walking out the door and just being immediately sticky and sweaty and nasty, totally normal. But for me to step outside and be in the mountains where the air is dry and, my hair is staying in place perfectly, my body is freaking out, my skin is falling off, it's completely different. So I think that it's important to remember that. It's like, what kind of, it's true. Like the lips are all chapped, like this is just flaking all over because it's so dry and awful. But my hair, perfectly in place. Girls, you know what I'm talking about.
That's the funny part. Because in Miami, my wife's hair was like, it just like elevated.
Oh my God.
It just goes up.
When I was in Tahoe, I never wear a ponytail when I play golf. Like it's impossible. My hair's long, it's hot, humid. In Tahoe, I rocked the ponytail. It stayed in place. It looked amazing. I'm like, this would never happen in Florida. So I might as well just enjoy it while I'm here.
I can dig it.
But back to the heat. So it depends. What type of heat you're used to. So for example, when you are out there in Arizona, obviously we all know the basics. You gotta stay hydrated. You gotta wear sunscreen, protect yourself from the sun. Make sure you're, getting some snacks. Make sure you're not getting, like drinking too much alcohol without replenishing the fluids that you're losing throughout the round. And, if you're in Florida and you're not used to that, this humidity will like just make you feel like you're not thirsty. I mean, you're gonna be hot and sticky and feeling gross, but you are not gonna feel nearly as thirsty as you are when you're in like that dry desert heat. So it's important to remember that in case you're traveling somewhere that you're not used to. So what kind of heat are you used to, so that you can adjust, and like do your thing. But
I feel like it took me a while to get used to this heat. Like coming from Florida, South Florida, coming out to Arizona, like that's such a poignant statement. Like at the end of the day, both heat, you need sunscreen and water. Like there's no debate. There's no debate.
And here, like before you even continue, remember that water alone might not be enough. So we can talk about that later. But
no, that's a good point. Let's jump right into that. Water. We all know you gotta hydrate, right? But you're putting me on game. No wonder I might not be playing my best golf though, Carl.
Well, so it's funny you say that because the studies say that even like a 2% decrease in like water levels in your body can have a huge impact in your performance. So a lot of people don't really care or realize, but like staying hydrated could actually help you play better. So it's very important to keep that in mind. You know what I mean? If you don't really, if you're not really a person that gets thirsty, if you're a person that doesn't enjoy drinking stuff during the round, because I know those people. There's the people that don't like to eat or drink or whatever. Just remember, you could be missing out on some serious, like gains in your performance if you are hydrating and doing what you have to do instead of just, like going at it like a savage.
Okay, well, all right, we gotta talk to the savages too. So all my like alcohol guzzling folk, right? So I just had like as random as it is. Last time I played golf, I had a guy give me it was a transfusion that we made with Gatorade, and I was kind of like, you know what, that's smart. What's your take on kind of mixing like the hydration with the alcohol?
Well, so before we even go there, remember I told you earlier, like water alone might not be enough. And what I mean is that when you're losing water, whether you're sweating or peeing or it's just literally evaporating off of your skin like it happens in that dry heat, you are losing electrolytes in the process. And sometimes when you just consume water, you are diluting those electrolytes more and more, and that's not allowing you to actually hold those liquids inside your body. So, they recommend adding some electrolytes to your drink. Obviously, you want to stay away from like super sugary things, I'm not going to name any brands, but like there's some brands of like sports drink where you have electrolytes, but you also have like 50 grams of like sugar and stuff like that. You want to avoid, granted, you are doing high intensity activity, but again, do you need 50 grams of sugar, especially when you're also drinking a transfusion? Probably not. So, like an alternative would be like maybe a little Pedialyte. Just put a little Pedialyte in your water. Maybe even putting a little pinch of salt in your water. Just make sure that, or, even the powder, like the little powder packets that they sell that have electrolytes. That is super important so that the water that you're actually taking in stays within you and actually helps you perform, as opposed to it just goes right through you.
Okay, all right. So salt, we're gonna put a little. I use the little tablets that dissolve, the little extra.
That's perfect. Those people make it easy for you. They just got little packets or the little tablets. You can't. It's easy,
but you
easy peasy.
Careful,
you don't have
like
to worry.
Because you got the sugar. Oh yeah, the sugar. Yeah, all the sugar in these things. Like I've looked.
Yeah,
at
but remember, a lot of those
like,
don't really have that much sugar. Like they do a pretty good job keeping them like semi-clean. It's more like the pre-packaged stuff that you buy from the cart girl, that you think it's a good idea, but those are the ones that you really have to look out for. Just make sure you're keeping your electrolytes, avoid that high sugar. Back to alcohol, let's go.
Back to alcohol, we gotta talk about getting it in. Like, hold on now, I get the fitness professionals, but what about my drunks out there that's out there playing G? Can we drink, get lit, and be hydrated all at the same? Is that a thing? Is that possible?
I would say yes, it's definitely possible. I think that now that I play golf like as an amateur and I don't necessarily care too much about competing or anything, I'm definitely having a couple drinks out there if I have a chance. But then again, once you start having 1 or 2 or 3 drinks, you start just drinking your alcohol, you're forgetting about those electrolytes and, like the regular water and all that stuff. So I think that as long as you're able to keep a good mix, you should be good. There's been lots of mixed studies about, like, for example, caffeine and alcohol, do they dehydrate you? You hear a million times people telling you don't drink caffeine, blah, 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 because it's a diuretic. But then there's other studies that say, for example, that caffeine actually gives you a little bit of a boost in performance, and the diuretic effect is actually offset by the amount of liquids that you're taking. It's like if you're drinking a cup of coffee, that's a cup of liquid. That's water. It's got caffeine and like solids in it that make it coffee, yes, but still. So I think it's safe to say that, we don't really know which study is 100% true, but it's better to be safe than sorry. You don't want to get dehydrated. You don't want to get too drunk where you're going to just like stop having fun. So I'd say make sure you have like at least 8 ounces of water, which is really not a lot at all in between drinks. Like think about it. Like this is like an 8 ounce of water. Like it's nothing. I could chug this in a second. Oh, well, I'm glad you have that because I have mine over here.
That's what Cheers. I'm saying. Hey, salute. I love it. All right, we're going to do it on here. Boom. There it is.
There you go. There you go.
All right, so we got the liquids out the way. So I feel like there's categories, right?
Yes,
I'm thinking like hydration, nutrition. Does that count? Is that the same thing? Hydration, nutrition?
No, definitely not. Definitely not. But nutrition is one of those things that like you don't have to worry about that just when it's hot. You got to worry about that all the time.
That's fair. But we talking about the heat though. So when we're talking about heat and nutrition, are we grazing? Are we just trying to eat a big meal and then just letting it sit there as we go play? What are the things we can do to keep that blood sugar neutral while we're trying to battle through these high temps?
Well, there you go. You said it right. You just got to keep the blood sugar neutral. So I would recommend, granted, everybody's different. Everybody has their, the way that their body works. But if you're not really sure what to do, I highly recommend that you start with like a light meal. A very balanced meal. So a protein, some carbs, some vegetables, and a little bit of fat. That's going to be the best way to take, those fats and the fiber in the vegetables and the carbs are going to offset like the insulin spike that the carbs could potentially generate. So that's going to keep you nice and level. You have a lot of people recommending that you snack throughout the round, and that works for some people. It doesn't really work for others, but I say at least in the 9th hole, 2 hours in, considering that you're doing, you know, activity, you should just have a quick snack, have some nuts. You know, if it's really hot out, try some salty nuts to get that salt in. You know,
there you go. That's how you get the salt back in you. Okay, I like that. That's a stretch.
Exactly. I mean, it doesn't always have to be like a powder drink or anything. You know, you can just get, you know, some salty food. You know, it's like as always, stay away from, you know, this super heavy stuff. If you have, you know, a sensitive stomach and you've already been drinking, just be smart. You know, use your common sense. You know, have maybe some bars that have some nuts. You know, just basically add some protein or fat to any carb that you're eating, and then you should be just fine. And obviously, this varies from person to person, but I think it's important to, you know, have a little something, especially if you're drinking and especially if it's hot.
You know, it's funny. Like, I feel like you got to understand where your threshold is, just as an individual, right? There's like
100%.
Like, I'm weird. I will not play golf over 110. Like, again, 110 in Phoenix is a little different than.
That sounds like insane to me.
110, you know, it's there's no breeze. The breeze is hot, but I can take it. But but I know that for me, like above 110, like when it gets to like 12, 15, 18, no, I get dizzy. Like I can drink all I want to drink, and it's like, no, this is too hot. Like my skin is like curling back. No, thank you at all. But when it comes to all these performance fabrics, and you're seeing that we've got SPF in cloth now that we can wear. You know, you can wear your sleeves. You know, I suggest that people wear a full brimmed hat, not just the, you know, the cute little joint with the, you know, with your situation covered up front. Like I'm talking about 360 coverage bucket hat style. Any tips for the folks listening right now to just how to actually cover yourself in the heat?
Oh, totally. So, you know, I am a little bit of a sunscreen freak, and I know you were talking about fabrics here. But, you know, remember, like, some people just don't like the full brim hats. I mean, it would be ideal if we all did. I am a visor person, which is actually not ideal because my ears are exposed. By the way, ears, huge spot for skin cancer, so make sure you're putting sunscreen there. You know, I put a bun up in my head so it doesn't really get my scalp. But if you don't have hair or you have really thin hair and it's getting to it, you know, it just defeats the purpose. So sunscreen before anything else. You know, so sunscreen's your face, sunscreen around your neck, you know, all the areas that are going to be exposed. Sunscreen in your hand, especially the one that doesn't get a glove, because that hand usually like gets darker. Look right now. Look down at your hand. It's a little darker, isn't it? Well, if you're a righty, then your right hand is definitely going to be a little darker. But that stuff matters, you know, and like you just, whether you are doing it for health or you're doing it because you don't want to have wrinkly old hands or a wrinkly face in 2 years.
Hold on, wait, stop. I have those hands. Don't be judging. Don't judge my hands. I have.
Those are not wrinkly hands. I'm sorry.
Super. You know what? This is.
Look at my hands. They're like all like ugh. And they're like all burnt from Tahoe too. It's like they're just recovering.
So you brought up an interesting topic. What about getting burnt? What are you supposed to do? No offense, I'm not the most, you know, articulate person when it comes to being sunburned. I burn 2 places, top of my ears and my lips. Other than that, I do have an extra little pigmentation that helps me. But I don't want people, black and brown people out there, to not cover up. It's still super important that you do the right things when it comes to protecting yourself from the sun.
You're so right. Black and brown people are also at risk of skin cancer. You know, just because you have that extra melanin, it doesn't mean that you are not going to get burned. You will still get burned. Your skin will still react. So it's important that you do that. You know, make sure you're putting your sunscreen on. Make sure you're wearing your long sleeves. Make sure you're wearing that UV protective stuff. It is very, very important. You know, and like I said, you know, usually you get people one way or another. It's like, do you want to be healthy? Oh, great. So maybe you should, you know, protect yourself from the sun. Do you not care about health, but you want to look good? Oh, well, there you go. You should protect yourself from the sun. You know, it's I started using long sleeve shirts, and if I don't use long sleeve shirts, my trick is to use the cream lotion sunscreen before I play. So I put it all over my legs, all over my arms. You know, if I'm wearing like a sleeve like this, I'll put it all. Yeah. See kind of the difference? Look at the tan. Like I'll put it all over, and then like as I'm in the golf course and I'm reapplying, I can use the spray, but I like that big strong base that the cream sunscreen gives you, and it also shows you exactly where you're applying it. Sometimes with the spray you kind of miss spots, but it's hard to miss it when you have like white stuff all over that you have to like wipe in, like.
But I hate
really
having to like wash my hands immediately after.
Well, here's the thing. It's like, here's the trick. You're gonna do that when you're at home. You're just leaving. You're gonna put that on. You're gonna wash your hands once, done. And then when you're at the course, you can just spray. Use the spray.
Okay. Double coverage. Okay, I see how it is.
Exactly.
Do you wear the sleeves? Do you wear the sun sleeves? Because I've been using those. So, they're not as hot as I thought they'd be. They're not.
Like they really aren't. They aren't at all. I don't use the sleeves as often. I mean, I have a couple. I don't use them as often, but what I do use is I just been using long sleeve shirts.
Okay.
So like a physical barrier, like a shirt, is going to be more protective than a sunscreen from the rays. So, if you want to wear the sleeves, awesome. If you want to wear a long sleeve, awesome. But if you don't, just make sure that you're sunscreening. It's so important. It just is.
So here's my thing. All right, look, we've covered kind of what to do, what to drink, what to eat, how to cover yourself and protect yourself. And this is one thing that I think our industry falls short on, is post-round. Because you've been playing in the heat for hours. It's literally 4 hours. My question is, when we are done with the round, how do we continue to protect ourselves from everything we just exerted? Because I feel like people will play golf and then they go home and try to just go back to normal life, and you've lost all these calories, you've lost all this water, and you think you're just going to have the night or whatever night you think you can have. And the reality is, Carl, it's not going to happen. It's not going to be like you think it's going to be.
No, I mean, the way that I see it, it's like golf is a sport. A lot of people like to talk crap about golf and say that it's not really a sport, that it's more like a game. But hey, you are swinging a club, like so fast. Some people do it, over 100 miles, like it's just insane. You are generating a lot of power, a lot of speed. You really need to start looking at golf as a sport. And what would you do if you, just played a really strenuous football game? The football game, let's say, might last an hour. If you're playing soccer, it's just a little over an hour. If you're playing tennis, it depends. But if you are playing all those sports where, are seen as high endurance or high intensity, you are most likely going to go home and fuel up afterwards. Well, our sport is not going to be as intense and cardiovascular as those sports that I just named, but it's going to be over a prolonged amount of time. And yes, you are burning a ton of calories. I actually wear a Whoop, which, tells you, yeah, there you go, Whoop power. It honestly amazes me how many calories I burn just at the driving range. Sometimes I burn more calories at the driving range than I do at the gym when I'm working out. So it's important to like replenish
check
that.
My numbers then.
Yeah, no, but seriously, like it's unbelievable. I mean, like I've played rounds of golf where I burn like 700 calories. It's like I could, like for me to burn 700 calories during a workout, I would have to basically die. You know what I mean? Like, it obviously, remember, like the heart rate and like, like your metabolic rate, it all varies depending on people. So 700 calories for, somebody might not be a lot, but I'm small, I'm 5'4", I'm like 35 pounds, 130 pounds, it's a lot. It's hard for me to burn calories. So the fact that I was out there playing, burning 700 calories is a lot.
I can dig it.
It really is.
I feel like, on those days, you also need to like get home and continue the hydration. Most NBA players, a lot of people don't see how much they drink before a game, and then and you see what they drink during the game. When they go home, they're drinking 4 or 5 more Gatorades, 2-3 bottles of water. I mean, it is a full out flush. And I think a lot of people, in order to recover for the following day, go home, Epsom salt soak, like do some things, take a long shower, do whatever you got to do, but understand that if you're going to try to demand things out of your body after you play around the golf in the heat, you're going to need to prepare that day, and you got to do it very specifically and take care of yourself and chill. Don't play 18 holes in 110 degrees and then go home and think you're going to redo your foundation in your house or go put up walls or do something really extraneous, because you're going to sit your ass down. That's what's going to happen. Your body's going to shut you smooth down. And we just want you to be prepared for that. That's all. We just want y'all to be prepared.
And I think there's different kinds of golfers. There's golfers that are always trying to do better. You know, those are the golfers that are more likely to already be doing all the things that we talked about. You know, they're most likely staying hydrated, they're most likely eating healthy, getting good rest, you know, wearing sun protection, because they know that all those things will affect their performance. But we also have the golfer that, you know, just doesn't really care. They just want to go out there and have fun. But let's be honest, like going out there and not playing well is not nearly as fun. It doesn't matter how drunk you are, you know? So seriously, you know, I have a, you know, like recently something really interesting happened to me. So I am a person that can, I function a pretty slow amount of sleep. You know what I mean? Okay. Like if I get, let's say 5 to 6 hours, that's good for me. You know, most people, that's not okay. And I know that because of my Whoop. You know, it tells me my recovery and, you know, how I've done.
Exactly.
And that obviously depends on every person. Some people might need 9 hours. I mean, I do better when I do 9 hours. But hey, 5 to 6 is enough. Is it ideal? Absolutely not. Do I try to get more? Yes. But if I get 5 hours, am I going to be useless the next day? Probably not. I'll probably be able to push through. But again, that depends on the person. So if you are, you know, like a golfer that, so I was telling you about my story, sorry. So I went to Wisconsin and, you know, we were with a group of golf influencers and we were, you know, like I traveled all day, you know, I always wait to pack till the last minute. So I stayed up late packing, shocker. And then I wake up early the next morning and then I fly and, you know, it's 2 flights and I'm kind of sleeping, but kind of not sleeping. You know, it's just weird. Travel is weird. Yeah. Then we get there and we go to the simulator place and we hit a ton of balls. We have so much fun. We go to X Golf and, you know, we're playing games and having competitions. And then we go over to dinner. We know we have like this, it's like this winery. So we have a bunch of drinks and, you know, it's fun. It's social. Love it. Go to sleep, get like 3 hours and 45 minutes of sleep that night. I wake up the next morning and, you know, my Whoop is telling me that I have 1% recovery and I'm teeing off to play Erin Hills. I was like, what? How am I not dead? Like my body is 100% not, you know, like psychologically, I feel good enough. I'm excited. I'm ready to play Erin Hills, but physically, anatomically, my body is not happy to be there.
No.
You know? So I was able to get through the round. Well, I played decent. You know, this is where it becomes hard because, you know, like I was working through some swing changes. So I didn't play great, but I didn't play terrible. You know, I played pretty mediocre golf, but I was happy. I was at Erin Hills. The weather was beautiful. I was having an amazing time. But for a golfer that wants to show up and really give it their all, for a golfer that is competing, for a golfer that is really trying to improve, that's not going to be ideal. Because it doesn't matter how hard you try. It doesn't matter how good your swing is. It doesn't matter how many lessons and hours of lessons you've taken before. If your body is not recovered, you are like basically swinging with a broken club.
That's it.
So remember that.
You're useless. But look, Carolina, I appreciate all of that information. Very valuable stuff. So everybody listen to this episode. Make sure y'all listen to her. Go make sure you listen. Take some time. You like it when I take. In this distance age, when everybody's chasing distance, what is one singular thing? Come on, Carl. One thing. Yes, there's 1,000 things people can do to hit the ball further. But what's that one thing here on our Birdies Not BS Let's Get Technical segment?
Activate your freaking glutes. Listen, we've heard this a million times. We heard Tigers say this. You hear it all the time. Everybody loves making fun of it. Everybody loves talking about the glutes. But I would say that 90% of the golfers that I train and meet have weak glutes. Why? Because we sit too much. It's just the worst position ever for our glutes are hip flexors.
Soft ass
hip flexors.
People. That's what you're saying.
Exactly.
You're saying people got soft asses. Okay.
100%. I mean, like it that's how it works. You know, I train a lot of older people whose glutes have been deactivated their entire life. They have not been working properly. So now they have like a pancake butt. And you know, they're like, oh, I have pancake butt. And I'm like, it doesn't matter. It's never too late to start activating your glutes. Is it easy? No. But is it worth it? Absolutely. So my, suggestion to you, if you are if you're just going to do one thing, is look up some glute activation exercises and start doing them maybe 2 or 3 times a week, when you're watching TV. This is not something you want to do.
What's your favorite glute activation?
In fact, this is actually my favorite exercise, not just for glute activation, but ever. I've been asked if you could only do one exercise for the rest of your life, what would it be? I love the glute bridge. So it's like when you're on your back, knees are bent, and you're elevating the hips. But here's the key. This is the key, friends. When you are working on glute activation, you have to be super mindful of what is happening, what muscles are actually working. Do you feel this here or there? Why? You know, that's why it's helpful to have, you know, a person like me who's going to be like right on top of you and be like, okay, so like, where do you feel this? And you're going to be like, oh, my quads. It's like, no. That's not where you're supposed to feel it. You're supposed to feel this in your butt.
My hamstrings. Nope, that's not it.
Exactly.
Squeeze.
You know, so let's adjust it. You cannot just like mindlessly do glute activation exercises and expect them to work. You have to be super thoughtful, super mindful. You know, I like to think about Arnold, you know, greatest bodybuilder of all time.
Schwarzenegger, yeah.
Yep, he talks about, you know, you've heard, if you're a bodybuilder or you're into it, you've heard of the mind-body connection, which is, you know, that connection when you're lifting and you are trying to grow a muscle in bodybuilding, for example, you are really focusing on using that muscle and squeezing it every single rep that you're doing. It's all about control. It's all about using the right thing. Does it come a point where you're just kind of like bumping out more reps?
Yep, it probably
just because
does.
You can't, sure, you know, you do some momentum, but most of the reps are happening under control. You know exactly what you're doing. You know exactly what muscles you're using, and that is key for glute activation. Because all these movements that are, you know, out there on the internet or, you know, created by physical therapists and doctors and trainers to activate your glutes, they can all be done incorrectly, and then you'll be wasting your time. So don't waste your time. Use your time wisely. Make sure that you are activating your glutes correctly, using the right muscles, and I can guarantee you that that will not only help you hit it longer, it will also help you swing pain-free if you are struggling from, you know, lower back pain and stuff when you play.
Well, I appreciate that, Carolina. Thank you so much coming in here, just doing what you do. It's just so great. Birdies Not BS. How do the people find you on them social channels?
All right, you can find me basically anywhere as Fit Golfer Girl. I'm on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, you name it, I'm there. And also I have a YouTube channel also called Fit Golfer Girl, where I have over 130 golf fitness videos, including glute activation videos. So you can go check those out. And, you know, I hope that that's helpful, and feel free to reach out to me on social if you have any questions.
Well, this has been an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much for joining me, being my co-homie right here on Birdies Not BS. Look, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, you know how to find us, birdiesnotbs.com. And thank you so much for being here with us. Hey, we out of here for this episode. Hello.
Bye. Thanks for having me.